Whoops, something's happened. Oh no, it's back. It's back.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, okay. So I notice that you do not in your talks talk much about the actual breathing. You tend to be more about generating feelings of everything's okay, everything's all right, gladden the mind, and that kind of thing. Now, I try to follow the.
Did I miss out the part about mindfully breathing in long,
I don't.
developing sati as you breathe in long, and
Yep,
sati as you breathe out long? Well, that's what's in the suttas there.
yep. That's what
That,
I'm doing. So,
okay.
so then this progresses. The body starts to feel good as I watch what's happening to the body. The mind starts to feel good. The PT comes on with the sort of trigger of the sort of body convulsions, the sort of that stuff. That slackens off into the sukha, as I understand it. Now, we
Okay.
progressing on from there. At the next after you've mindfully, you breathing in, trained yourself to experience the sukha. You then breathing in, breathing out, you're fully experiencing the mind conditioner. Now, at this point, when in fact throughout and generally, I seem to have, but particularly at this stage of things, a sense that in the head, in specifically in the middle of the head, there is something which I can use to gladden my mind. In other words, I can turn to the memory of, I think it's more like a memory than anything, of turning to the glad mind. And the question really I have is, what is the mind conditioner, so called in the sutta? And is what I am feeling at that point, can that be regarded as the mind conditioner?
Well, actually, it's not complicated at all. That in fact, it's downright obvious in all kinds of places. I could give you many, many examples, but basically what we're talking about is that these three aspects of the Satipatthana interact with each other, and the feelings are kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Between the body itself is sensations and then feelings and then mental. So it's in that way, and the feelings being in the middle condition in both directions.
Mm.
And because of that, then the body will condition the feelings, and the feelings will condition the mind, and the mind will condition the feelings, and the feelings will condition the body.
Mm.
Back and forth and up and down. And part of our job is in our investigation is to see that conditioning. But it only, or let us say, the much better way to do it, as you're asking, is in a state of sukha. Because when we're in the state of hindrances, there's no telling what we'll actually see when we look. But once we get the mind into a state of good feelings and sukha, and that we're willing to experience, then you can recollect and you can remember. And then in the at the times when we're practicing in those now moments, you can see an example of that. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is very big on that when we are sick. That's an excellent time to practice, because the ordinary sick that ordinary people are is the body feels bad, therefore the feelings feel bad, therefore the mind feels bad,
Mm-hmm.
without having any say so about it, because it's all done instinctively. And then, in fact, animals know how to heal themselves by actually crawling off into a safe place, into a hidey hole of some kind to heal. And part of that healing is rest. But humans don't do that. They might find a hospital or a hidey hole of some kind, and then they just worry themselves to death about it. And that's one of the things that happens. So that's just one. But meanwhile, if we can take control of that, then we can say, okay, the body is sick. I'll let it be sick, but I'm not going to feel bad because the body's sick. Bodies get sick sometimes. That's okay with me.
Mhm.
Okay, and so we actually can change the way we feel by changing our mental state, our mental attitude. Then, in fact, that's a very interesting but tiny little reference that most people miss. Is that part about the gladdening the mind in the Anapanasati Sutta is not necessarily gladdening the thoughts, because that's more of the content of the mind. And in fact, the gladdening the mind here is gladdening the state of mind. And another way of talking about gladdening the state of the mind is coming out of being a victim into being a winner.
Mhm.
That's the state of mind we're in. And so it's good to start watching what kind of state of mind we're in and recognizing that the state of mind we're in is often conditioned by the body and the feelings,
Mhm.
but it can be done the other way around, and we can take control of the situation.
Yeah,
And
well,
the good time to practice that is when we're sick. Okay, go ahead.
it is the only thing you do have control of, because I was thinking that, you know, much of the object of this exercise for me is, apart from trying to not to be sort of automatic grumpy bastard, um,
Yeah, it happens to this
pro,
generation. They call
pro,
boomers.
program you grumpy bastard 1.01 kind of thing.
Uh-huh. They
So
write movies about it.
yeah, um, the other thing is the realization that, oh, with the five daily reflections about, it is inevitable, the inevitability of age, sickness, death, and so on. You don't really
Yeah,
have
get
any
ready.
control,
Get ready.
Yeah,
Get
well, you
ready.
don't have any control over anything. You see, that's the trouble. I mean, you don't control, really, you don't control what happens to your body. You don't control what happens to you as you in the daily life.
Actually, actually, there's a point about that.
Mhm.
And that is that it's the victim who has the position that they're out of control in all cases and they can't do anything. All
Yeah.
right. And then it's the prideful, ignorant, greedy politician that thinks that he can figure a way out and get through anything. And that's actually wrong view, that we cannot get away with anything. Everything has a cost to it. All right. But in there, in that middle path, is to recognize through the attitude of the winner that often there was no problem in the first place,
Hmm.
that the problem itself was created. And so taking that attitude of, oh, this is easy enough, that means we don't need a helper to fix what's broken, because there wasn't anything broken. It was merely an attitude. And
Hmm.
so brightening that mind is what it means then, is to begin to brighten the mind, change our attitude, uh, find out, is the mind sharp? Is it focused? Is it fit for work? These are the kind of questions that we would ask at that step. And in fact, this list that I just gave you
Hmm.
comes right out of the Satipatthana Sutta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And this is what we're looking at, is to begin to see the state of mind, because the state of mind depends upon which direction the power goes. In the sense, when the mind is weak, it goes from feelings or instinct, takes control over
Hmm.
the mind. But when the mind is strong and fit and sharp, with the attitude that we can handle anything, now the mind takes over the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
and sends it the other way. This is what we mean by the conditioners. Which way is this conditioning operating depends upon which state of mind we're in.
Right. Right.
Isn't that amazing? That we can change the state of mind we're in, and then we can feel the way we want to feel.
Well, it's not amazing in the sense that it has been described many times in by various people. You know, I mean, the classic ones.
And what right? I get this. What's amazing is so few people get it.
Yeah, but I mean, but you know, it's sort of it gets described. You first, well, if you have a religious upbringing, you first get it in the stories of the Christian martyrs, sort of singing into the arena, and the guy being roasted, who tells them to turn him over because he's done on this side. All this kind of thing. Clearly, these people are in control of themselves or internally. But you know, you have to be a full-on Christian martyr kind of thing to do that, because the rest of us can't do it.
Actually, that Christian martyr mentality is exactly the same thing that we find in India, that is often referred to as the Jains, and that we find it actually in many places in India, even without the Jains. There's one guy who used to, on a regular basis, put shark hooks, or really the biggest fish hooks he could get, and run it under the ribs, and tie
Mm-hmm.
the other end of that thing to a tree, and
Yeah.
he'd bounce up and down.
Yep.
All right, he could do that. So, but what's the point? What's the point of these austerities? And that's the Christian mark. I think in Christianity, the point is that Jesus, I love you and I need you so badly. Look how willing I am to hurt myself. Please come save
Mm-hmm.
my butt before I have to burn it up too,
Oh
to
yeah.
prove to you how much I love you.
There is all of that, certainly. Yes, there is all of that. But I mean, I'm looking at it more from the aspect of it can be done. You know, if they're doing it one way, um,
All right, here's
other
the
guys
other
are doing
side
it
of
the
that.
other. You know.
What about the Buddhist monks? Only, by the way, in Vietnam does this happen, and I've actually been a part of it happening one time in the United States, but it was still a Vietnamese protesting against the Vietnamese government.
Yeah.
But to be able to sit and douse yourself with gasoline, get yourself mentally in a particular state, and then
Yes,
sit there while you roast.
that's right. Yes, it's horrendous. This guy obviously has something going for him. You know.
Right, because we also have, maybe you've seen the scenes to where this guy did that in France one time, and within a second or two, he was up running looking for a blanket. He had to get his friends to go get a blanket to put him under. He wasn't really ready to sit there. But part of the trick is to take really, really deep breaths, because the next one is going to be hot enough to roast you on the inside out. And therefore, it's kind of over then.
Well, yes, that's what I was thinking. You know, you breathe it in, and that should shorten things. But there you are. A, a jolly subject, eh?
Well, actually, I'm willing to talk about this because, I mean, in a way, we're sitting here planning your future.
I'm not really planning to set myself alight anytime soon.
But you're going to die.
Oh,
How can
sure.
you do that? I mean, we've got some choice over it, and you've just, I mean, you've probably eliminated that one, but keep it at the bottom of the list. Don't throw it off the list completely. There may be some value.
Well, yeah. Not the way I fancy going.
Actually, for me, it's okay. Here's one that's very interesting: public execution.
Say again?
public execution.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I want to go out, is public execution. I get at least a chance to give a final Dhamma talk.
Get them to do it with a guillotine, though, not some fool with a sword that, or an axe that might not do it properly.
But when they do it properly the way that you're talking about, it takes all the fun out.
Well, yes.
But anyway, this is something that we can do. We can contemplate that sometime, some place in the future, we're going to have to bite the bullet. The old thing that you were talking about contemplating is old age, sickness, and death.
Yep.
And here you are about to go through that stuff.
Well, the first one's here. The old age one's here.
All right. And you know that. And some of the things that happen that way, you don't like. You want to be young again, so you don't feel the effects of being old.
Of course.
Okay. Well, all we need to do is change our attitude about being old. Oh, I'm so old, I can't cut them. Oh, I can't do it. You have to go do it. You take the trash out. You sweep the floor. So we can turn it into advantage.
Yep.
So see everything as, every lemon that comes, we can make lemonade out of it. And so that's the question. How are you going to handle the dukkha of old age? Because it's going to get even more old. You just gotten started. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I know. Now, you see, you're talking about, this is a thing that sometimes occurs to me. You're talking about making lemonade out of lemons and all the rest of it, but you don't actually need the Buddha or Buddhadasa or you for that, to tell you that, because people have been saying that. I mean, sometimes it all sounds a bit like the Victorians and their the sort of attitudes that they produced in their moralistic poems and their and their books and so on, and it doesn't. It doesn't seem to rely on anything more than suggestion,
Right.
auto-suggestion. In fact, this brings me to another thing I wanted to ask you about.
You hit, though. You got it. That's exactly correct. And all of that stuff that goes along with auto-suggestion that you're talking about, including hypnosis and meditations and 10,000 other things, is it all boils down to mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. That's the whole show.
I was going to ask you.
You have to get that mind thing fixed. Coming out of the loser I can't mentality into I can do this, I can handle it, I'm all right, I can walk right up to old age and sit down beside it. I can even go to sleep beside old age. I'm not afraid of it at all.
Yeah, you sound a bit like one of, the writer Damon Runyon.
I've heard the name. That was many years ago when I was a kid. He had Damon Runyon Theater or something like that.
Yeah, he wrote these stories about New York, and it's all very funny, and it's all written in the present tense. But he did an essay. He did an essay when he was dying of cancer. I think it was lung cancer, about how death came to visit him, and he's sort of say, "Hello, Death. I mean, I wasn't expecting you today," kind of thing. And Death says, "Well, I wasn't really looking for you, but I was seeing another guy on the block, so I thought I'd just look in," kind of thing. And it goes on from there, and it's quite amusing. But I wanted to ask you, knowing or having heard in your various talks that you have trained as a hypnotist, what are and this always sort of occurred to me back when I started all of this stuff back in the 70s, getting interested in all this stuff. What is the connection between hypnotism and meditation and so on? I mean, are they pretty much interchangeable? I mean, originally...
Well, at least they're joined at the hip.
Yeah. I mean, originally I was thinking very much in
Three
terms...
ways of are talking about the same thing.
Say again?
3 different ways of talking about the same thing, depending upon the background and all of that kind of stuff. All right. But everything that applies to hypnosis, including who can resist it and who can not resist it and all 10,000 things like that, also apply to correct practice of anapanasati.
Right. Okay.
All right. So,
yeah, because
in that regard, they're the same thing. And as you said, you use the term auto-suggestion. All right.
Yeah.
But auto-suggestion in whatever form it's used with that language, one of the qualities of it is it has to be repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It has to, that suggestion has to wear in until it gets in. Yeah, so, yes, exactly. Now,
Good.
many of those things are going off in the wrong direction. A lot of them have to do about creating wealth. Even Christians get off into that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and it actually takes a mental state to deal with money. And most people don't have the mental state of feeling wealthy. They feel poor.
Yeah.
That in fact, some people can feel absolutely wealthy and have less money than those who feel really poor. So the money itself is kind of relative, but the attitude about money or our attitude about anything, and in any attitude that we have, we can change.
Yeah.
Just because the tree is leaning in that direction doesn't mean it's got to fall in that direction. We can change the way that tree leans.
Yeah, well, that means that means I've got to sort of cut the tree in such a way that the forces holding it upright, there's nothing. Yes, it overcomes the force pushing it that way, pushing it one way, or something like that. It sounds like a rather awkward problem in physics, but no doubt if you were alive, you would know how to do it.
All right. Well, here's the way: is to rebalance things from the top down. So you'll see that guy go up there and top the tree, and then he'll come back down a little bit and top some more. And then they can get a rope on it in a way so that they got some lateral strength on it, so that they can then cut it at the base, and that rope's going to keep it from going in the direction it was. And in fact, it's now going to at least swing at most 90 degrees because of the way that the rope is attached. But that's dangerous. It's better to cut it down and keep cutting it down until the piece that's left that's going to fall in the wrong direction is so short it can't do any damage.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, but it's safe. I mean, it'll save a house or a car and things.
Yes, you got it. Good.
So, in any case, when our own mind is in fact upright, then we don't lean in any particular direction. That this is the whole point about how does a skyscraper, even in an earthquake, we've got the foundation that can, even though the earthquake is wobbling, we can maintain our composure. We can keep things from rattling us all the way to the top. We can handle it, and we can stay upright because we're not already leaning in a certain direction. As an example, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, they could have rebuilt it several times over or rightened it up.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's a tourist attraction. They've had to put in literally hundreds of millions of dollars to keep the foundation going so that the thing keeps leaning,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
doesn't fall over.
Yes.
Okay,
And in
so if we
fact,
can take that with the mind, what's our attitude? What's our leaning quality? And we can use words that fit with this called confirmation bias. We go
mm-hmm,
looking for the things that we agree to
mm-hmm,
already, and we
sure.
kind of ignore the things that we don't agree with,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of polarizes the mind and keeps us blind to all of the things. You've heard the expression, in fact, this is so true. Gerry, this is so true. Jesus said, you've got a Catholic background, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
But he left out part of it. Gloria Steinem has been given, but she doesn't take the credit for the third line of that. You shall know the truth shall set you free, but first it will really, really piss you off.
Oh, yes. I think I've heard you recorded of you saying that. Yep, 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 yep.
Okay, well, this is what keeps people from being able to do the Dhamma, even though they may think that it's a good idea to lighten up their load, to top that tree off before it falls over in the wrong direction. Let things down, to cool off, to take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What religion actually doesn't actually teach that?
Oh, no. Good heavens, no. Good heavens, no. Good heavens, no. You'd never make a go of it if you taught that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They would never make a go of their religions if they taught that.
Well, that's the reason why the Buddha was so hated in India during that century, or not century, that millennium or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Why? Because when people understood the teaching of the Buddha, the Brahmins didn't get much land.
yeah, sure, sure.
People didn't believe what the Brahmins were saying. The Brahmins didn't like that a little bit. That's standard religion. In fact, modern Christianity is much closer to the religion of the Jews that Jesus taught against.
Mm-hmm.
The new has now become the establishment. And one of the interesting things about it, he was talking about the lilies of the field are okay by
Yeah.
themselves, but people have to go to the temple all dressed in finery. And
Mm-hmm.
what's this whole 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th century stuff about Sunday finest? Do you get my drift?
Say again?
Put on your
Sunday?
Sunday finest. Put on your
Oh,
Sunday
yes,
finest.
yes,
Yes,
yes, your
yes,
son,
right.
yeah.
You got to get dressed up to go
Mm.
to church. Why is that when
Why
Jesus teaches
indeed?
against that? I mean, almost everything that Jesus taught, the Christians have taken and reverted it back to what the Christians are now the example that Jesus was teaching against.
Yeah, well, that's pretty obvious with, it's pretty obvious with your original lot too, the Southern Baptists, the way they seem to go in America. However, yes, I wanted to say though that an objection that does come up in the mind is that Buddhism is just a religion like any other, because at the
For
end of
the
the day,
90%, yes, for the
at the end of the
90%.
day, there is a caste, or there is, I mean, what is the difference really between the Brahmins taking the land of people and the monks or the bhikkhus going and sitting down in the forest and saying to people, feed me, you know?
He does. But he
Feed
doesn't.
me and you'll get some merit for it. I mean, this is self-serving too, isn't it?
No, for one
Uh,
thing, the monks never ever say, feed me.
well, how the
Wow,
how
that would be really breaking the patty malt. That, in fact, that's one of the things that I'm in the process of doing is training a young monk about stop asking lay people for things, especially stop asking lay women for things. That's a no-no. Don't ask for things. That's what makes the mind noble enough that people will feed someone because he's content with what he's got, whether he gets anything or not. And so that's what makes them worthy of getting at least your leftovers rather than throwing it in the garbage.
sure, but isn't the whole thing, the whole business of taking no part in the world and not doing anything except sitting there and accepting what is given to you? Because isn't that all the same thing? Because if you people didn't give you things, you'd starve, you'd die.
Yes.
So,
And that many, many people that I know of are quite happy with the relationship that they do have with the monk.
mm-hmm,
But the Thai people want to foster that
mm-hmm,
they get good advice and they also get great benefit. That the monks in Thailand fulfill two jobs, not just one. They're not just the priest of whatever religion happens to be handy. They do that too for those who need it. But they've got more than that. They've got really good first high quality psychotherapy, readily and available for those who are willing to do it.
is that right? Yeah.
Yes, that's what the noble Dhamma is all about, is to become noble, which means to no longer expect to become magical, because you're not going to
Yeah,
ever become magical.
yeah, yeah.
But in fact, there's another kind of magical thinking, and that is with all the grievances that have all the things that people have done you wrong, you're never going to get even.
No,
And
well,
we always dreamed that someday I'm going to get even, and we never get even. We
mhm.
we never we never get over our past until we just drop it, because we're not ever going to get the score settled up. The score is going to stay uneven, broken, and we'll never get our way.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if the monks can help someone understand that, then he probably, in a way, can save someone's life. A jilted lover. This is a clear example of that. You're not ever going to get her back. You can't be even. I mean, it's just not going to work out. You're not going to get your way.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. Be happy. Start again.
Mm.
That in fact, in Thailand, I kind of think that it's a common thing, but I've seen it a couple of times at Wat So and Mok, and in one case, Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa put this guy under my care, and he was there. His parents had brought him there because he was a jilted lover.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he stayed with us about 3 months, and he came away with some Dhamma. He got over it. He didn't need her anymore, but he was pining hard.
Yeah, but he probably got over it anyway. I mean, people do.
And some people commit suicide, and others do really stupid things and whatnot like that.
Yeah,
And so
well,
that's why the parents brought him there. I mean, because there is in Thailand not only very few psychiatric, they do have. I mean, there's a difference between stupid depression and actual psychotic problems.
mm,
I know I've been on both sides of that fence back and forth. So, uh, in this case, that's another example of where the monks actually fulfill a great service. without really having to do much of anything. So you could say then that the monk fulfills the service and the duties for the community during the morning and then takes the afternoon and the evening off. If he's doing a really excellent job, he only needs to work an hour or two a day anyway. I mean, hunter-gatherers only worked an hour or two. Why should the monks have to work 3? If they can save a life or two in an hour, why should they work for 3 hours?
Probably takes a bit longer to save a life or two, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends upon how you hold your mouth now, don't it?
Okay.
So there is a use and a value for having nobles around. It tends to change the community. It tends to be good when at least one person in the community has the right noble view about how things are. People not only look up to him, but they emulate him and eventually become noble also. That we can change society one friend at a time. That's the only way it can be done.
Yeah, well, what? Yes, but noble. Now, I mean, how do you?
I hear you are one string of yes buts.
Of
You're
course.
always trying to find something wrong with it instead of saying, "Wow, that's an interesting point about the monks. They can do both sides."
Yes, but.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course I do yes, buts. I mean,
All right, let's do another yes but. I'm good for it. I've heard every yes but so far. Give me
yeah,
another
well,
one.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. But no, I mean, fortunately, the yes buts are more of an intellectual exercise and don't necessarily affect one's practice if one is doing anapanasati on a regular basis. Anyway,
Or just don't worry, be happy.
well, yeah, but that's a wee bit, you know, that's.
Well, it's a sing-songy way, but it's the same thing. It's the entire teaching of the Buddha. Don't worry, be happy. See the dukkha, see the things you worry about. Stop worrying.
Yeah.
Stop. Just be happy. You're already okay.
Yes, but nobody's ever going to buy that one.
What? Nobody what?
Nobody's going to buy that one. It's just too simple. It's too good to be true. Isn't it?
Until you practice it and find out for sure that it is true over
Yes,
and
that's what
over
I'm
and
trying
over
to
again.
do. But I mean, you know, you'd
And
say that.
eventually you convince yourself that not only that it's true and that it's easy, but that you can do it too.
Yes, but the minute
Yes.
you say, yes, the minute you say to somebody in my society, "Don't worry, be happy," they're going to say, "Oh, give me a break." You know, I mean, this
Yeah.
is
But
nonsense,
I'm not
isn't it?
saying it to somebody in your society. We're talking to you, someone who can hear what it means.
Maybe.
Okay, don't try to save the world. We've done that already and it didn't work.
No,
I
no,
can think of twice. In fact, if you throw Hinduism, you can go for a third. But Islam couldn't take over. Christianity couldn't take over. Ain't nobody taking over. Nobody in the world has got the whole world by the tail, unless that world that you're talking about there is the monster in your own mind and you've got him by the tail. That's a good point.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
So,
That's
but
why minutes.
we can't save society. Buddhism does not proselytize. He kind of just sits down on a park bench and smiles, makes friends with somebody without having to teach them anything.
Yeah, but I mean, if I say to somebody here that I know, I am practicing anapanasati, they will raise their eyebrows and say, this guy is off the wall. This guy is completely balmy.
But if
This
you
guy
don't
is
say
weird.
anything and just smile at them, okay. You've heard, in fact, I think it's out of somewhere in politics that it's better to keep your mouth shut and let them assume whatever they want to, rather than open your mouth and prove to them
Oh, yeah. No,
what
no,
their
no, no.
worst fears. Okay, so
Indeed.
better to just smile and accept rather than trying to prove that you're okay by telling them about anapanasati. Wait until they smile back at you and say, "Oh, you're a happy old man. Where did you get that?" And you can say something like that. Well, I was a Santa's elf for a while. And one of the things that I learned as Santa's elf is every day is Christmas. Every day is a holiday. And you can start like that. That's how you teach the Dhamma.
Uh-huh. Yes, well, of course, I
You
always...
might have a following.
No, of course, one of the stories that has I've always liked is that of the Buddha going down the road, having got enlightened, and meeting Upaka the Ajivika, I think he was. And Upaka says to him, you're looking good. You know, what are you on, in effect? And the Buddha says, I've cracked it. I have the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Actually, no, he just said that he was awake.
Well, and Upaka said, good luck
Good
with
luck
that
with
one,
that.
pal. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's
But
what
we don't know in the sutta whether he said that with great respect or whether he said it in a jeering way, the way that you said it. Okay, we don't know.
I expect that he said it that way. But never mind. He might have
All
done.
right. All right. Well, here's the point is that don't go around answering enlightening kinds of questions because people won't believe you anyway. That what we can leave with people is a happy smile, a
Mm-hmm.
peaceful demeanor,
Yeah.
even with a holiday. Every day's a holiday. Everything is holy right now. That's why I go barefoot,
Mm-hmm.
You know, about the burning bush and Moses, and the burning bush told him to take off thy shoes, Moses, for thou art upon holy ground. Well, you see, I spend so much time on holy ground that I just generally go barefoot all the time.
Yeah, well, you can do it. You know how. But
But I wear shoes to town because
um,
I know there ain't nothing there holy enough.
yes, well, anyway, never mind.
I'm
The
just
last
joking
time,
with you. This is so much fun. The, the, the thing of it is that don't worry about society or proving yourself to society, that you will prove yourself to society well enough by your happy behavior without having to reveal that it's got a source to it.
hmm,
That in fact, I've had several students, and we will continue to do with experimenting about how to teach the teachings of the Buddha without having any Buddhism or any Buddha in it, that it simply sells itself on its own without having to have all of this other baggage. In other words, can Buddhism, the Western Buddhism, actually stop being Buddhism and just be Western with don't worry, be happy, or some other way of teaching people? And we're going to need that because AI is going to eat the jobs away and the lunch for vast numbers of people. What are they going to do? They can revolt, they can burn the place down. Why don't they just sit down instead and enjoy their lives? Now they don't have to work anymore. The society doesn't promote it work anymore. We've got the robots to do all the work. Hey kids, chill. Enjoy your
the
lives.
society isn't going to give them unless they've got a job, the society isn't going to give them enough to live on. So they're
Well,
going
who
to have
needs?
to cut back on their expectations a very great deal. And nobody wants to do
Wow,
that.
guess how many kibbutzes could we build in the United States? Do you know what is a kibbutz?
Oy vey, my life, I don't want to live on a kibbutz.
Okay, well, you don't have to, but a lot of people would love it to live
Yep.
in a friendly, happy community where they don't have much to do and everybody gets along really well together.
It's yeah, it's one of the American dreams, isn't it? It's one of the no, it's one
Well,
of
it was what
people have
is it
been
called?
writing about that one for
Wavy
years.
gravy. You
Hmm?
remember wavy gravy?
Wavy gravy, no.
Wavy Gravy was one of the well-known hippies in the 60s and 70s. They started communes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there
Okay.
was a lot of that about.
So we can, in fact, start some communes in America. And in fact, the best place to start them is right there in the already existing Asian Watts,
Uh-huh.
and then let them build nobly out from there.
Hmm. Yeah. Well.
Otherwise, we're going to have a whole lot of mayhem sometime in the future. Why can't people just chill and enjoy their lives?
Well, we're going to have a whole lot of mayhem in the future, however you look at it, because global warming is going to increase, the oceans are going to rise. Bangladesh, for starters, is going underwater, and there's 180 million displaced Bangladeshis looking for some place to go. You know, this is,
And India built a wall.
yeah, yeah,
And Nepal is pretty high up there. They can't go up the hill.
yep.
And so a lot of them thought they could get into Burma, and the Ringgits proved that that's not an option. So where are the Bangladeshis going to go by the millions, by the tens of millions of people? Where are they going to go?
Good question. Good question. They probably, well, of course, everybody gets, well, no, the British politicians are stoking in Britain some people's idea that the place is going to be swamped by people from the Middle East and other places coming in on little boats. And therefore,
What is being swamped by people from the Middle East? I would assume that the Bangladeshis are going to be swamping the Middle East themselves,
probably, I mean, it's a long way to
because
come
the
to get
British
the
want all
Brits.
of those Muslim Bangladeshis to go to some Muslim country.
Mhm.
Hmm.
No, I mean, at the moment in Britain, you know, the, the country, well, the politicians have got into power by playing on the
I've seen
mindset of some people.
I've
That,
seen some of the maps they've drawn.
sorry?
I've seen some of the maps those British have drawn.
Mm, no, yeah. And
Not including a Kurdish homeland and not going by the boundaries. They did it because they wanted to make it easy on their surveyors rather than easy on the people that they were chopping up.
oh, of course they did. I mean, they had an empire to run. It didn't matter too much about the people in it. Come on.
Well, it matters now that Bangladeshis are about to drown. Where are you going to put that 100 million people?
Absolutely, absolutely. But this is the trouble. I mean, the future is black. I mean, no, I'm not talking. I'm talking about in terms of metaphorically. The future is very depressing to contemplate. Shall we put it that way?
Well, the Chinese have a word for it that seems to fit better. It's actually a curse when they say, may you live in interesting
Yep,
times. Okay.
that's the
Well,
one.
we're about to go through some interesting times. I've been through interesting times my whole life, in fact, and things are about to get really super interesting.
Yep, you said it there. That's for sure. Yeah. Hey, how are we for time? I think.
So it's best to keep our eyes open so that we can
Mhm.
see the Duke flying through the air and step out of its way, because things are going to get really interesting.
Yep.
And there's going to be a huge number of people who become interested in Buddhism during this. And so this is why we want to kind of be ready so that when people really want to have the Dhamma and they're thirsting for the Dhamma, we'll have it available to them rather than trying to spoon feed it to people who don't want it. Because there's going to be plenty of people by the millions who do want the Dhamma, some of which are actually in Bangladesh.
Well, good luck with that one, pal. You know,
I've got a student, by the way, coming from Tunisia just next month.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to go to Malaysia to get a visa into Thailand because of the Thai snobs against Islam.
Yep. But you said earlier that people are trying to sort of take the Buddhism out of Buddhism and make it, make the Dhamma operate on its own without the Buddhist baggage. And I think that's going to have to happen in the West, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you see that you'll probably be familiar with I think it's Ewan Thompson, he wrote a book called Why I Am Not a Buddhist. And I think he's a Canadian philosopher.
Somebody's pulling the strings of Bertrand Russell on his book, Why I'm Not a Christian.
Okay. Exactly right. Russell and his little flying teapot, yes. Yes, but...
well, the Buddhist that he's against is the same thing that Bertrand Russell was against in Christianity.
Yes.
Religions are tending to do that way. The point is that when you open the fruit of Christianity, you get a rotten core. But when you open the fruit of Buddhism, you get a sweet fruit.
Well...
In other words, the belief systems go right to the core. What's beyond the core of beliefs? Magical thinking. There's nothing beyond that. Christianity is full of it. Now, here's the point. If they actually had Jesus at the core, then they could follow the actual teachings of Jesus, and Christianity would be reformed. That's the beauty about Buddhism, is at its very core, there's real good stuff.
Yes, but at its very core, it seems also the way it is mostly presented, you have all this stuff about life to life, reincarnation or whatever.
Well, that's only because the old ex-Christians picked up on that.
Sure.
And that's been they preach that stuff, the magical part of Buddhism, through a bullhorn. Yes, ordinary people do that.
So do the Mahayana people. So do they're doing it. And
all people start in magical thinking, Gerry. Every child starts in magical thinking. The little Johnny goes zoom, zoom, zoom with the magical belief that he's driving a car. The little girl has the doll with the magical belief of mommies and all of that kind of stuff. All right. So we start off in our magical thinking. How long are we going to stay in magical thinking? Because there's someone there, someplace along the line, is going to start taking advantage of our magical thinking.
Indeed, but
the Catholic Church exists on abusing people's magical thinking, so they've got to keep the magical thinking alive. They can't get people actually educated. That's in fact what's going on in the United States. Is the Christians are hardcore trying to get secular education away from their kids.
I know,
because our kids are leaving Christianity in droves.
I know that. I've read all about that. But the thing is that you still have this hardcore of belief in Buddhism that you will come back and live further lives. And there's an awful lot of that coming out everywhere.
No, that's not hardcore Buddhism. That's some Buddhists that are being hardcore in their own mind. Okay,
Well,
there's a difference. Okay, the
maybe not
real.
so, but you get on the internet, listen to all the, or you hear all look at the blogs and so on. There's an awful lot of people actually preaching that one. And of course, there's no more evidence, there's no better evidence for that than there
They
is for
can make
heaven, hell,
money
and
off of it.
purgatory. Eh?
They can make money off of that.
Well, but they
They
really
can.
believe it.
Pardon?
They seem to really believe it.
Well, either he's a charlatan and a liar, or he's a fool. Which
Hmm.
which one do you want to put him into? Does he actually believe the horse shit he's selling, or does he believe it without eating it?
But then it brings me back to uh, the sutta that I was talking about the other day, where it's difficult to get past the Buddha
Yes.
talking about
Okay.
lives.
I really had, let us say, obviously, when you understand it, I had a problem with a senior monk who were
Hmm.
telling junior monks that both sides are in the suttas.
Uh-huh.
But he said it in a way that it's your choice. And in fact, in a way, it is. So both of the sides are there. The teachings of the Buddha in the way of, I only teach one thing, dukkha, dukkha nirodha,
Hmm.
teaching the Eightfold Noble Path and that kind of stuff, including paticca samuppada. And none of that requires the belief in rebirth and
Well,
reincarnation.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
it becomes irrelevant.
All
I
right.
mean,
It becomes
dukkha dukkha
irrelevant.
nirodha makes everything else irrelevant, really.
Okay. And then there is a whole lot of stuff in the suttas where people do believe in all of that. Well, as I was saying before, in our childhood, every one of
Hmm.
us starts off in magical believing, and that the suttas are absolutely full of magical thinkers and magical belief. And sometimes the Buddha goes along with them to gain their trust. But that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that he believes in it, just like we were talking about the charlatans who lie and know they're lying, or they're fools. Okay, well, in the regard of this other thing, can the Buddha, in fact, pace people by going along with what they believe so that he can gain their trust and then pull them into the wisdom of the Dhamma so that they can get out
Yeah.
of that?
Well, yes, going along with them to gain their trust is immediately laid open to the objection that that is in itself dishonest. Because if you
That
don't
in
say it
itself
like it
is what?
really is,
That in
that
itself
in
is,
itself is dishonest. Because if you're,
yes, hypnosis, meditation a lot, there is inherently dishonesty in it, partly because you, as you have probably heard before, the Tao that can be said is not the Tao.
I know that one too, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that's so true that we have to get as close as we can to the truth, knowing that there's a gap there. We knowingly lie. We know. And part of that is also agreeing with people when we know that what they're saying is incorrect and false, and we don't confront them on it. We keep it as ammunition for later.
Nice one, nice one.
So it has then, in this regard, to do with wisdom about dealing with those people out there who are not Dhamma oriented. And luckily enough, almost all the people that call me are at least a bit Dhamma oriented. And so I don't have to deal with the people who call just to cuss me out. I've never had that, in fact.
Mm. Well, I mean, yes, one wouldn't if one was, if one, well, I think people call you probably after seeing your YouTubes and your blog, or what turns up as blogs or your YouTubes, and they think this is a good idea. We will talk to this guy. And the ones who don't think it's a good idea, ipso facto, aren't going to go anywhere near you because of confirmation bias. Anyway, there it
Well,
is.
actually, in the comments, we do receive some comments from time to time of people who don't appreciate what's happening. So yeah, and these are ordinary people who see things through an ordinary magical view, and that it's okay for them to do that. It's irrelevant. It's okay for them to do that. The question is, for them, if it's relevant, then in fact arguing with me about it means that it's relevant to them. All right? Okay. So if it's relevant, then that means that that kind of belief will interfere in the practice. Why? Because the relevancy means they care about it, which means they carry it with them, which means they put a lot of mind moments into that when they could have been in the here now instead. And so our belief systems often interfere with actually getting best benefit. So it's better not to believe anything. Come to the state in all cases. I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's keep looking.
Well,
let's not come to a conclusion that rebirth exists or rebirth don't exist, because we don't know. And guess what? Since there's no evidence, I don't care. That's the best part, is we don't care about whether it exists or not. Let the people who care about it figure out how they don't have to care about it so that they can get some good practice in.
But that's the hardest part of it, not caring about it. Precisely because if these people are right, then, my bum is out the window.
Why? No. Hear this one. It's the Christians who talk about forgiveness because they're not up to scratch. Right? And so every one of those Christians, when they die, they don't get a real ticket to heaven. What they get instead is a voucher of forgiveness. But I am going to ride in first class because I paid for my ticket through virtue.
Yes.
I deserve to go to heaven. Then, in fact, I've done better than God himself. He's done ants, he's done mosquitoes, he's done COVID-19. I mean, the guy's a mess. He needs replacement.
Sure.
I just don't know that I want to step up to the job or not. That sounds like it's too much work.
But you see,
anyway, I thought that I would tease you with that.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So what if we're wrong and there is rebirth and reincarnation and the Christians have got it right? Well, fine. We're going to straighten this heaven out. We're not going to let these freeloaders in, these sinners. I mean, why let pickpockets into heaven? Let's have some good people here. Let's get some noble Buddhists in this heaven.
Well, they're going to let them in, actually. There's an argument they're going to let them in because Jesus was talking about the guy who paid the same money for the workers that came in at the end of the day as he did to the workers that worked the whole day. But the point is that it is surely important, because if the Christians are right, you're going to hell. If the Buddhists are right, you're probably going to a hell realm, or something like that.
Well, yeah, but why can't we enjoy whatever hell we find ourselves in? That's the whole point of getting your mind straightened out.
Because
that in fact we can talk about the paradise we're in as a kind of hell.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got mosquitoes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
All right. I know. But the Catholics are always on about mourning and weeping in this vale of tears, and you're thinking,
right? It's a matter of attitude.
And
the higher ups in the church, they want people to stay miserable.
Sure, they do. Of course.
They don't want to be happy. They don't want to see us dancing down the aisles in first class on the way to heaven.
Yeah, but don't the top Buddhists want you believing in reincarnation and being reincarnated in
I'm
another
not
place?
interested in believing anymore. That was when people were alive. We're talking about after we're dead. We're talking about proof. You asked me the question, what if I'm wrong? And I'm giving you a very happy, detailed answer of, well, what am I wrong? Then this is what's going to happen instead. This is plan B. Plan B is that I get a first-class ride or ticket to whatever Christian heaven that actually does exist. But we don't know any of that. So let's get ready for everything. Let's get ready for anything. It's kind of like a Boy Scout, okay? Let's get mentally to become a Boy Scout. What is a Boy Scout? Their motto, be prepared.
Yeah,
All
sure,
right.
sure,
So
sure.
we don't know what the future is going to be. Let's be prepared.
Yeah, well, of course, as Bertrand brackets teapot, Russell was very keen to point out there is no evidence. There's a lovely story about him that they said to him, what happens if you're wrong? And you appear before the throne of God, and God says, Russell, why didn't you believe in me? And Russell replies, no evidence, God, insufficient evidence.
Evidence, right, exactly.
But that's a different story.
Well, you see, I take a different attack to that. Who the hell do you think you are? I mean, look at all the screw ups you've done. I mean, you've even caused religions. You had millions of people being wiped out because of your stupidity. Why didn't you show up? You missed your own party.
Well, there is that one too, yes. Anyway, listen.
You could have had heaven on earth. All you had to do was show up. It was a paradise, remember? You let Adam and Eve screw it up.
Well, he rather on the story he rather weighted the dice against them, didn't he? Anyway, yeah, I think we'd better stop this, or else this is
Okay,
just.
I'm having fun. I don't care. I mean, this is good Dhamma. This is
Yeah,
good Dhamma. What
well,
if? We don't know what if, so let's plan B in a happy way right now. Let's enjoy that we don't know plan B or plan C. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's be ready for anything.
yeah, well, indeed. I do have some difficulties with this all being recorded, and you're putting out me appearing as I don't know.
As my good friend.
Oh well, that's nice. That's nice.
We're having a friendly chat. That's all we've got. Is a happy chat.
This is
So you
also
don't have.
true.
Pardon?
This is also true, and I thank you for it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all there is to it. It's just we're enjoying the moment, talking about Dhamma.
Yep. Okay. I'd better sign off. So things to do.
All right.
Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you very much for it. And okay.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Good luck with that one, pal.
Good luck for you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
So when you meet your own dude out there on the road, what are you going to tell him? Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry about whether I'm awoke or not.
Yeah. And he will say to me, good luck with that one.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay. Cheers then. Bye-bye.
All righty. See you later.
Cheers.